You're in to 98.1 Pearl FM, and of course, it's a pleasant good morning and welcome back to the morning show. And of course, you know what's happening here, right? It's Friday. Thank God it's Friday. And today we have, I would almost say the chair lady, Parliament. However, Mrs. Sarah WESCOT Williams is the leader of the UD party. And of course, it's your time to say hi and hello. And of course, it's, the holiday season. Talk to us.
Indeed, and a very good morning and season's greetings. We're still in that season, just having had our 2 Christmas days, Christmas and Boxing Day. So again, season's greetings to all. It's good to be back in the studios today following that break. And so yes, good morning and thanks for having me.
Okay. Well, after all of that ham and turkey, depends on what you indulge in. You know?
That's so true,
Okay, so I must say that after all that, and of course we are still going to be into the Old Year's and New Year's, but it's time for us to talk a little bit of the campaign trail.
Yeah.
How is the campaign trail going so far?
You know, you're feeling, and I am feeling the effects of having a campaign during the Christmas holidays and the New Year's, etc. And while it's not the first time, but it creates a slightly different feeling in terms of campaigning. Naturally, I had to respect the Christmas holidays. You don't want to impose upon persons, So we took a brief break from the campaign in order to celebrate and allow others to celebrate the Christmas holidays. So now we're back on the campaign trail, but it's going to be a short run before next week when we have the New Year's. That's another short break. And then the following week is the election week. So there is a lot, in my opinion, to be done as part of the campaign, because you want to allow persons to hear your message, and with 1, the celebrations that are taking place, 2, the many candidates and the messages and the jingles and you name it, you try to, or at least I try to, that's my effort, to still remain focused and get to the electorate the points that I believe are important. And the matter of the manifesto, for example, as you know, a manifesto is a requirement by law really, that political parties must, in their articles of incorporation, indicate how and when they will publicize a political manifesto. So I agree, it's a legal stipulation. In our manifesto, not in our manifesto, in our articles of incorporation as the United Democratic Party, the UD, we have established that we will present our political manifesto as much as possible at the same time of postulation. That's the way we put it in our articles of incorporation. Clearly, that did not happen. And what I realize and have realized is that every time you have this so-called snap election, these kind of matters are delayed, because if you don't expect an election, you're not going to be working on a manifesto. That's one thing. You need to present your list of candidates, but you also want to have a discussion with the candidates on the list about the manifesto. So we are currently busy with our manifesto. It's not a big thing, because in 2018 our manifesto was very much focused, so the UD's manifesto was very much focused on the rebuilding, on the reconstruction of St. Martin following the hurricanes of 2017. So again, in 2018, that was our focus. On the basis of that manifesto and the manifesto of our coalition partner then, which was the St. Martin Christian Party, we developed a 4-year program a program, so a governing program, 2018-2022. In that program, we outline very specific actions on the basis of our manifesto. We are more or less in the middle of that 4-year program. So there are many things yet to be done as far as the United Democratic Party is concerned. And those things are spelled out in our governing program. So coming back to the manifesto now, Manifesto 2019-2020, because it's your manifesto for the election of January 9, 2020, our focus has shifted from our manifesto of 2018. And I see that question on your mind in your look in terms of shifted. Yes, because we have come a good ways following the hurricane, so in terms of the rebuilding. And now our focus, and that's what we are expressing in our manifesto, is beyond the reconstruction of St. Martin. And we are looking at long and sustainable planning for this country. That's now the focus of the manifesto for the election of 2020. So the UD's focus for Manifesto 2020 is beyond the reconstruction, long-term and sustainable planning for St. Martin. During the election, or during the campaign rather, we're hearing a lot of things, some good ideas, some very individual ideas, but what we all need to recognize is that all of these things need to be brought together in a comprehensive plan for this country. We of the UD, for example, yes, there are many social issues we believe need to be addressed. However, these social issues cannot be addressed unless we look at the sustainable development overall of the country. A very important topic, because jobs and labor for us back in 2018 was a priority, and it still is. However, jobs and labor are part of our overall economic development. So we can't talk about wages without looking at the bigger economic picture. That's why when we talk about matters like minimum wage, for example, we cannot see that separate from addressing the cost of living. Because if you look at what is required as a minimum wage, some call it a living wage on St. Martin, you cannot impose that without disrupting your economy. So you need to look at the different components. Yes, wages, and I'll address the minimum wage issue in a moment, but also the cost of living, because creating that type of a balance, if we can't add it to the wages because of the disruption that higher wages will cause to the economy unless we do other things. So what do we look at then? We look at the cost of living, especially for the vulnerable groups in our community. Because if you have the minimum wage, which it is today on St. Martin, and you then have a high cost of living, even that minimum wage is not giving our wage earners sufficient buying power. So when we look at minimum wage, you also need to look at the cost of living, in our opinion, and you also need to look at the cost of doing business, because minimum wage is not a maximum wage and should not be looked at as a maximum wage above which you cannot pay. So again, for us, it's about that balance. It's about looking at all of the different components, and you can't single out one matter without addressing the others. So when we talk about economic development, then we need to look at what can a government do to encourage and stimulate economic development. Because if which is another important aspect. We need to look at social safety nets, because there will be those persons in our community who are vulnerable, whether it be because of age, whether because of some type of a disability. And so who looks after those persons? The first one who would be looked at would be the government, to provide that social safety net. In order to do so, government need an income. Where will government get its income? You see, so I say all of this to show that the connection between all of the different aspects is so important, and that overall picture is what needs to be established, and the people of St. Martin need to get a clear idea. Well, okay, if this is, why is the government doing this, for example? Why is the government giving incentives to business or businesses? It is to stimulate the economy, for government to get an income, so that government then can take care of those aspects that only a government can take care of. And yes, it is good to have volunteers and others assisting, but it is primarily government to create that social safety net for those who are in need, who can't help themselves, and who fall in, I wouldn't say special categories, but who fall in different categories than those who can go out there, they have their business, or they are working and can take care of themselves. All of this to say, we need to see the interconnectedness between the activities that we are promoting as a political party, that we are promoting as individual candidates.
With your vast experience, though, and looking at some of the candidates that are on the UD party, how broad can this vision project itself? Also viewing the groundwork.
You know, firstly, as it for now, for our manifesto purposes, we looking at the main topics. We're looking at the main topics. What for us are the main topics? One, the social, sometimes I call it reconstruction or re-engineering. So our whole social atmosphere and all of the things that fall under social. It talks about, for us, the social issue of the country is about communities. It's about communities. It's about cohesion in our communities. It's about taking care of those persons in need. So that whole social tapestry of St. Martin needs our attention. The poverty is an issue that falls under that whole social umbrella. How do we address it in terms of the different aspects that manifest themselves because of poverty that is out there? We have to admit that. That's one thing. So, but when we talk social and the things that need to be done on the social platform, you need to look at your development, your overall development, your economic development, especially, again, to create that basis to then deal with the social items. You can't see these matters separated from one another. 2020, the United Democratic Party also looks at 10 years of country status. We believe after 10 years, we have a period, we have sufficient time, we have sufficient reflection to look back and see how we have fared and how we have managed ourselves in this country status.
How do you plan to do that?
Just have a review. Have a review of the 10 years, so since 10, because what we have seen over the years, we have focused a lot on others. We have focused on the Netherlands, what the Netherlands is saying, what Dutch politicians are saying, what the kingdom government has said and is doing or has done in terms of, sometimes threaten us with instructions because according to them, we haven't done certain things, we haven't done it well enough. But what about St. Martin? Looking at how we have handled our country status. Because, and again, I keep repeating this, in its purest form, and I know it's not pure, but in its purest form, we are responsible for everything that regard regards St. Martin, except for foreign affairs, for nationality and defense. That's in its purest form. And of course, I know about the whole discussion regarding Article 43 and the guarantee function, and how the kingdom government can step in, and that the kingdom government is not really a kingdom government. It's the Dutch government with our ministers plenipotentiary. I know all of that. Yet, if we stick strictly according to the charter, then those are the only 3 areas that we are not responsible for. How have we handled our own affairs, less those 3 areas? That's what we need to reflect on. And, at the end of the day, to me, it's going to come out to be that we have not handled it well. One of the ways that we are seeing that we have not handled it well is in the area of governance, and this constant fight between the parliament and any constellation in parliament and the government, resulting in these elections every year and a half, every 2 years. So there is a certain maturity that is required of us as the managers of this country status of St. Martin. Have we been, what word should I use there? Have others, let me turn it around. Have others, like the kingdom government, tried to impose their will on us? Yes, they have. Have there been political undertones in the Netherlands that have led to this pressure by the kingdom government? Yes, it has. But separate from that and loose from that, how have we managed our own responsibilities? How have we managed our own responsibilities in terms of having a parliament that is to oversee the government and having a government that is to act transparent and in the interest of all its citizens? How successful have we been? That's our responsibility. And how successful have we been? So when I talk about a review of country status, I think we should first start to look at our handling, our management of the country status. I don't want to call it a fight, but the fight on the level of the kingdom government vis-a-vis St. Martin. That's a fight. That's a fight that we will have to continue to try to maintain our own position as a country. While I call it a fight, in our manifesto we talk about diplomacy, where this matter of constitutional status is concerned. We talk about respect, and we talk about solidarity. Because coming back now to the hurricanes of 2017, what did we see demonstrated by the Netherlands? Now I'm talking the country, the Netherlands, and this has nothing to do with the kingdom government. We have seen a form of solidarity, and that needs to be cherished, in my opinion. But that does not mean that as a country we should not be respected for being a country. But in order to have that respect, we need to make sure that we take care of what is our responsibility as a country here. And we need to firstly look inward to see, have we really handled our country status with a maturity that such a status requires. Remember, we came out of a island territory status and were thrust into this governance structure of a parliament of 15 members that is supposed to control the government. How successful have we been? That's the discussion I want to have in 2020, looking back the 10 years that we have been country. How have we managed country St. Martin? Us, how have we? And where we have failed in that management, is it really others who are responsible for that? I don't believe so. I believe it stems from right here on St. Martin, that too often in the management of country St. Martin, we have dropped the ball.
How do you see UD stemming the fixing that?
Yeah, and it brings us back to another term that you see as a red thread throughout our manifesto, and that is stability. In fact, the UD's slogan is the stabilizing factor, and we really want to be that stabilizing factor in terms of getting the stability. Are there things that can be done to promote stability? Yes, we believe so. I believe, for example, we can look at Article 59 in our Constitution that allows for these snap elections without calling it snap elections. We can address that 59. 59, as far as I'm concerned, can stay in the Constitution, but we need to condition it. It cannot be an open-ended decision of the government of the day to decide elections will be held. We need to condition that. We need to further outline this issue of the ministerial responsibility. In other words, the no confidence issue between a parliament and a government, or a parliament and a minister. So yes, can certain things be done? I believe they can, but it requires an overall appreciation that we need to address this matter firstly. So there are a couple of very key issues, let me call them that, for the United Democratic Party going into the election of January 9. One, long-term planning now. Okay, to me, we're out of the phase of the reconstruction. While there's several issues to be dealt with in the context of the World Bank, but that for me is a separate issue. But again, a long-term plan for St. Martin. So this National Development Plan idea that I have been working on since I was Prime Minister, so since I was in the executive branch, but we need a plan. It's too much of ad hoc little pieces and little individual agendas that we are now seeing manifested. Long-term planning, sustainability, and social reconstruction. These are red threads throughout our manifesto. And sustainability and long-term planning are critical items, we believe. And then as subcategories, healthcare is important on St. Martin. Our economy is important, and our social systems and creating social safety nets where these are necessary. Again, government's focus should be on the development of sustainable development. There's a very important aspect to that sustainable part. Sustainable development that includes our economy, our environment, etc. And then that government then can focus on its core tasks, which is also taking care of social needs where they exist on St. Martin.
When it comes to the health care, can you go a little bit into that health care issue?
And a lot of focus has been put on the matter of a new hospital. And a new hospital is important. We have fought long and hard for this project of a new hospital. Unfortunately, the whole matter was politicized. But the fact remains, and I hope, before I go into what the fact remains, I hope that within short, we can see the first shovel going into the ground. So for the groundbreaking of the new hospital. And it doesn't matter, in my opinion, who then stands in front of the camera to so-called get a credit. Important was that we of the United Democrats have held on to that project even when the others try their damnness to basically make the project fail. Because a new hospital means, one, giving our patients the necessary care right here at home. It's a comforting thing for the families. It reduces cost. And in addition, it could also be a catalyst for medical tourism on St. Martin. So rather than our patients having to travel abroad, hopefully we can attract patients to St. Martin because our healthcare would be up to that level with a new hospital. So the new hospital, but it goes beyond that in terms of healthcare. It's also about healthcare reform. Now, healthcare reform is a can that has been kicked down the road. So in other words, we know we have to address it, but successive governments and especially ministers have tried to kick the can down the road. The discussion today is about universal healthcare coverage. In other words, making sure that everyone on St. Martin can receive basic healthcare coverage. This requires a reform of our healthcare system. Right now, our overall healthcare system is very fragmented and it is costly. Fragmented, costly, and even costly. Too many persons are falling through the cracks. Right now, it has not yet been regulated that seniors and self-employed, that they actually are entitled to medical coverage. This will come with universal healthcare coverage. So while again, when we talk healthcare, a lot of persons think about a hospital. That's an important aspect of it. And again, I say, after it has been vilified by some politicians for their own personal agendas, fact is that the new hospital, God's willing, will come. And the same ones who have tried to break that project down, who have tried to do everything, will be the ones standing in front of the camera to take the pictures. But again, that's okay, because like I said on another occasion, at the end, St. Martin will win. St. Martin will win because the new hospital would have come. It's just like I said for the airport. So it doesn't matter at that given time, again, who is in front of the cameras taking the pictures, but St. Martin would have won. The hospital project, again, I say unfortunately, has been delayed and frustrated because of solely political reasons, and by some politicians who are going to be in the front line when the new hospital starts. In addition to that, healthcare reform is important so that we can include everyone in receiving the necessary healthcare, because we can put it off and we can try to circumvent preventative measures in healthcare. So having persons go and get the necessary checks and checkups, etc., but that is going to come back to haunt us in the future. So we can't kick the health reform can down the road any longer, and that too is an important aspect for the United Democratic Party going forward. So the whole social reformation, healthcare, the sustainable development also of our economy. There's so many issues in our economy that we have to address, and guess what? We can't address it alone. And that's another issue that we continue to stress in our manifesto. So the long-term planning one, but also that we need a buy-in. We need a buy-in from the community into this long-term planning. And another key issue for our manifesto and our program and platform going forward. There's so many things coming at you. When I say coming at you, I mean in terms of, we have the holidays, we have the celebrations, but we still want our message to be clear in all of the fray that is out there. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not about what individual candidates would like to see happen, what is their focus, what is their input, but rather that political parties understand the interconnectivity between all of these matters on St. Martin and try to address them from a sustainable and connected fashion.
It seems as though it's the social issues are the ones that mostly high on the agenda.
Yes, indeed they are. And as I mentioned, health is a social issue because it affects us. Under that social umbrella, again, you have some persons who are privately insured, who are insured by SZV, who have a government doctor card, etc., but there's a large segment of our population that has no healthcare coverage. What this means is that you get a reduction in productivity when these persons get ill after having maybe avoided preventative healthcare. It has an effect, as I mentioned before, on families, on societies, on communities. So healthcare is also a social issue. Sanitation, for example. I look in amazement at a project like the wastewater treatment facility that needed to come, which I negotiated with the European Development Fund agency along with Friends St. Martin. So that's to tell you, because now I'm talking again before 2014, because up to that year I was Prime Minister. That project has still not materialized. I look at a project like the landfill in Phillipsburg, and even now, while the World Bank has taken charge, so to speak, of this project, you still see a lot of political games being played with the project. You still see a lot of frustrating efforts that are being made with respect to the project. So having touched on the issue of the World Bank, that's a matter that I believe in 2020 we have to address as to the operations of the World Bank processes. We need to address that in terms of how effective that way of operation is for St. Martin.
Well, it seems
Sorry.
okay, that's all right. It seems as though that the manifesto is being put together. So you're taking out some and you're putting in some, and in order to have this 4 to 10 year plan.
Exactly. Well, in our manifesto, what we're stating is that it's important that we get a long-term plan. So you had a 4-year governing program, which was from 2018 to 2022. We reached, and now I'm talking the United Democratic Party.
Yeah.
We reached up to late this year, when you had a change in government. But what you're seeing is that the interim government that is there now, that basically did until they had a change, but they're actually executing what is in that program. And I mentioned two items, which it is clear as day that it's just a matter of continuing after those who are in government today frustrated the process to the hilt. Those two projects are, one, the airport, which now finally is online again, is on stream again, and the hospital project, which will be on stream again shortly after having been frustrated by those who are going to be the ones standing in front of the camera when we have a groundbreaking for the hospital. I am convinced of that.
That's politics.
I don't know in how far that is politics, because to the people of St. Martin, how does that come across? For months in the Parliament of St. Martin, the criticism and accusations on the new hospital were out of this world. And it was not only about the hospital. I mean, persons got very personal, the personal attacks, etc. A motion, mind you, the motion that was made to send home former Minister Emil Lee, that motion basically said to halt the hospital project. That's what that motion said in coming with a motion of no confidence against Emil Lee. But now, under the same persons who were part of that motion to say stop the hospital, they, in their, I can't even say the manifesto because it's like very individual, in their listing of things, they got the new hospital mentioned. They're not going to change anything about the process for the new hospital. It's the same one that they criticized in the Parliament, and that now they're going to be pursuing as part of this government. If there's one thing that I am happy about in terms of the short period left to the election of January 9th, is the fact that we need to get out of this political government quagmire. We are in a real quagmire, politically speaking.
That wasn't my question.
Yeah,
yes, correct.
We are, because what do we have? So let me take the United Democratic Party, a faction in Parliament, now in opposition, but we, together with the SMCP, we were supporting the government up until September of this year, when you had the break and you had the two who left, the United Democratic Party, to join with the others. What happened since then? So then you had a government formation on the basis of the two members who left, the United Democrats, Mercelina and Brown Bill. They then joined with the USP and the NA to form a coalition of 9, and then have the government that is there. The government that is there right now is of that coalition. But in the meantime, one of the USP members who had joined the coalition, has become not only an independent, so Bryson has become an independent member, but Bryson is actually heading the United People's Party slate, on which you have a member of the United Democrats, so of the UD. That member is a member in Parliament for the UD, and that member is, and this is Bijlani, is running on the slate of the UPP. And the leader of the UPP is one who is supporting the government who is there today. So when you see a member, technically still of the UD faction in Parliament, comes out and criticizes the government and the Minister of TIAT, that member, in this case MP Bijlani, is basically criticizing his leader, so the leader now of the UPP, and because he is criticizing the government that is there, and that criticism had to do with the closing and the closure of Phillipsburg on Christmas Day. And I'm like, this is such a political quagmire that we are in. It is no longer funny. It honestly is no longer funny. So when MP Bijlani speaks like that, he does not speak on behalf of the UD party, of which he's still a member in the faction. But he's running on the UPP slate that is headed by a member who is part of this coalition, the coalition who supports the very minister that MP Bijlani is suggesting that if she can't handle the TIAT portfolio, she should step down. And I'm like, whoa. But I say all of that to say, that I am happy that we are approaching the last stretch of the campaign, because the people of St. Martin need clarity in terms of what is really going on. Who is with who? Who is with who? And when they speak on behalf of whom are they speaking? So one thing for sure, MP Bijlani is still a member of the UD faction in Parliament, but he's running with the UPP, thus supporting the coalition that is there right now. So I consider it a quagmire, honestly. And if some of the issues, if I'm having questions, could you imagine how the people of St. Martin are looking at all of this as it unfolds? And again, I want to come back to the whole airport debacle. I mean, in the Parliament of St. Martin, members of Parliament actually stated publicly that they are going to get rid of the CEO of the airport, Mr. Mingo. I mean, it's not something I'm making up. It was said publicly in Parliament. But yet now these same members, now part of a coalition that is supporting the government, endorsed and embraced the very airport project. The criticism about bringing in someone from the Netherlands as the CFO and on the board of the airport. The government that I supported, so the one of the UD SMCP, they were taken to task about the airport, about Schiphol involvement, about the CFO and the board member on our airport board. Only to then go on the other side of the fence, become part of government, and then you embrace the project. Same thing you saw with the hospital. Break that project down to pieces, tore it into pieces, and only now to say, well, it is in progress, so there's nothing we can do to stop it. But what about your principles? Were you principled against the airport and the Dutch involvement at the airport? Yes or no? Apparently it was not principled. It was just political, that you were so obstructing to the airport. Were you principled against a new hospital on St. Martin? Apparently not, because now you are embracing the same hospital project that you tore to pieces when you were on the other side of the fence. So these kind of things, I believe the people of St. Martin are entitled to clarity in terms of politicians, their word. Do you even have a word when you hear something from a politician, especially in Parliament? So that maturity in Parliament is something that we need to demonstrate, because we have not done a good job at it for the past 10 years, in my opinion.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. When the dust has settled, though, on the 9th of January, how do you see the UD going forward? Will the UD be willing to work with anyone, or will the UD say, I am happy in the opposition bench, or I need to be in government?
I never give these type of I don't want to say predictions. I don't give these type of statements before an election. First of all, I think it's important that I stress now the importance of voting on January the 9th. And if there's one thing that I have constantly heard on the campaign trail, so to speak, is that the people of St. Martin are fed up with the process, are fed up with the way campaigning is done, are fed up with the personal attacks in Parliament, only to see members of Parliament turn around and to use a local St. Martin slang and eat their vomit. Turn around and do exactly what you told the people that you were vehemently against. People are just tired of all of this. People are tired of trying to understand what's happening in politics. Who is with who? For what reason? Are there even principles underlying what politicians are doing or not? So getting that feeling very, very strong from the population, I am saying, even though it looks like child's play in terms of what's happening politically, the election, the campaign, and everything else, it is critical, because on January the 9th, 15 persons will be elected to Parliament. Those 15 persons, or any majority of those 15 persons, will be responsible for the next government, so for the next ministers of these countries. Make sure, and this is my expression to the people of St. Martin, that one, you come out and vote. That's the only instrument that you have until now, and vote for persons who at least if they say something, whether you agree with it or not, at least you can hold them to that. And if they had to change, and all this brings me to your question in terms of working with whom, at least they should be able to give an account to the people of St. Martin why. So I would turn it around and I would say, please go out and vote. To the people of St. Martin, definitely what I stand for, how I have managed, how I have operated politically speaking, and the United Democrats as well. And again, it's about sustainability, it's about cohesion, bringing together rather than dividing in terms of our constitutional status. It's looking inwardly first in terms of, are we where we want to be as a country? Have we done what we could have done as a country? And I think we'll see where often we ourselves have dropped the ball. And as I always say, my experience in government is not something that I will apologize for. I think it's an asset, because we can't plot our future without knowing the road that we travel to get where we are today. And that road is full, or should be full in my case, of experiences of falling down, getting up, having to shift my sails, etc., etc. So again, and that's what I bring to the table as leader of the United Democrats, along with 10 other candidates, some of them with experience, others with that youthfulness to want to make a difference and contribute, and different areas of expertise, discipline, and passion.
That's what I would like for you to expound on a bit. Because I know I asked it to you in a small sentence just now, but can you expound on what the UD candidates are all about?
And you see, and that's a difference. That's a difference, I believe, with several other parties that we're seeing. Yes, just like all candidates, the candidates of the United Democrats, they have specific areas, sometimes of their expertise, so from their background, but also in terms of their role in the community. You know, we have don't let me call any names, but all of them, all of the candidates of the United Democratic Party, they have their areas of love and expertise and passion. But we need to bring all of this together in a manifesto that reflects the position of the party. So for us, it's a common vision. It's not about what you think should happen in the election. I think the country should go independent. One, I think the country should become part of the Netherlands. No, fine. As an individual, you can have that thought. You can have that sentiment. But how do we look at it as a party? And that's where you're going to see a very conscious, description of the matters that are important for us going forward. And again, we believed, one, long-term planning, sustainability, and that's social cohesion. We do not believe in separating our population according to we and them. And then you get a discussion, who is them? So you like some of them, but not all of them. You like some of we, but not all of we. No, we are in that. We believe that in order to make St. Martin strong, we need all our forces and attributes and contributions, we need to bring them together. If we start to discriminate between communities and pockets in our community, we're weakening St. Martin as a country. And that has been happening, and again, regretfully, also on the floor of Parliament, you have heard these type of expressions, and which we condemn, by the way.
Yeah, St. Martin is at the crossroads. A booming economy from the late 60s, 70s, 80s coming up, and now what St. Martin has built. You are seeing the other islands who was buddy with St. Martin. They have almost the photocopy of what in St. Martin. Now that's nice, that's good, and it's being looked at as if St. Martin is dropping behind. But St. Martin is at a crossroads.
It surely is. It surely is. In so many areas.
And once you reach the crossroads,
you got to make decisions. Exactly.
Correct. Okay.
And politically, we are at crossroads. That situation that I just described there, what I call a quagmire, a political quagmire, we need to get out of that and kind of limit the same thing from happening in the future, because this is confusion. This is political confusion. The way you got it's political confusion where we're in right now. That's one. We are at crossroads economically, and we can't seem to get the will of old to basically come together. We're seeing a shift on so many different levels to individualism. And again, Parliament is an example and a system that is actually built. Our system was built on community effort and community coming together. Our political system is built on political parties of like-minded persons. But what we are seeing is that on so many levels, it's going in the individual direction. And that's a pity. That's a pity. And we either going to decide, if I look at it from a political aspect, we either going to decide it's going to be all about individuals. So 15 members of parliament, all with their own ideas and their own, their own ideas primarily. And then we will see how many of them can come together, or we're going to continue with a political party system. And in there, you try to, as a party, portray what exactly you stand for to the people of St. Martin. This kind of flip-flopping that we have seen over the last couple of months, it's not conducive to growth. And that's why we're at the crossroads that you mentioned. That's why others have sort of caught up with us, copied us, caught up with us, and some of them are kind of running ahead of us. Because we here can't seem to get our act together as a country, because too many individuals feel things have to go their way. And again, I say it, and it starts on the level of parliament. Too much individualism at stake there. Projects and agendas that are strictly personal ones that then manifest itself. And if you then have the key of a seat, and you can rise yourself above your own personal agendas. That's what we saw. That's why we saw what transpired.
Interesting. And we got to round it up. So
we do.
I'm going to let you have the mic again. Let the populace know what you want to tell them.
Yes, thank you, Pearl, and thanks to the entire population for listening, and giving me an opportunity to a little bit out of the fray to just kind of explain my position, that of the United Democratic Party, and our desire and passion to want to continue to represent our country on the basis of sustainability, on the basis of cohesion and the unity, but also pride in country. Because I believe if we put our minds and our heads to it, we can do differently. We can get out of that slide that we're heading in, or we're heading down with.
Interesting. Well, I must say thank you so much for being here on the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again pretty soon.
Yes, surely.
That's right.
Surely.
And enjoy.
Thank you.
I know the campaign trail is going to be a bit rough coming up now.
Yes, the last stretch, like I like to call it, and that's why opportunities like these, just to be able to speak to the people, and I encourage persons. You have me on Instagram, you have me on Facebook, you have me on Twitter, you have me on WhatsApp. And if there are any questions or concerns or comments with respect to some of what I'm saying here, I look forward to that.
Wonderful. And people, that's going to do it for us this morning, and thank you so much for listening. Ciao.